We are doing Extra Life again this year, where you can mash buttons, roll dice, play games, and help kids along the way. I hope you'll be a part of that with us. Stick around after the video for more information. ChristianGeekCentral.com. Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about the Netflix original movie, Freaks? You're One of Us. Stick around and find out. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of the Netflix original movie, Freaks, You Are One of Us. The synopsis on IMDb, very briefly, says, tipped by a mysterious tramp, a meek fry cook discovers she has superpowers and uncovers an unsavory, vast conspiracy. This is... I would describe it as a sci-fi drama. It's important to mention that it is in German with subtitles. Now, don't let that scare you off. Hopefully it won't, because I think this movie, for a number of people, myself included, is worth checking out. And over the years, as I've watched other movies dip into using subtitles, sometimes in a prolonged way, I think I've gotten more and more adjusted to subtitles. I certainly prefer them over an English dub. And I think that the performances and the way this movie is shot they create atmosphere and they create layers of subtext that just make it visually engaging to watch. And so you might consider still giving it a try, even if you've never watched a movie with subtitles before. This is a movie about people with superpowers in the real world, not to be confused with the movie I reviewed very early on this year, simply titled Freaks, also about people with superpowers in the real world. But the stories here are very different, although both of them do center on families. The fry cook mentioned in the synopsis on IMDb is a mother of a boy who's probably about... I want to say maybe 8 years old, 9 years old, and her husband does not know that she has superpowers. In fact, she doesn't know that she has superpowers. She's just grown up taking this medication because of an incident that happened when she was younger, and as the movie unfolds, we understand more and more of what's going on. She understands what superpowers she has, and is dealing with that discovery and the discovery of other people like her and the way they're being treated in the world, and she has to figure out, well, what is my place in this world? It's not a comic booky type of story, at least in the traditional sense. Certainly there are comic books that have taken this more serious, grounded route of what would happen in a world, that actually had superpowered people existing in it. But it's not comic booky in the sense of the, X-Men, where a villain shows up and he has powers and everybody has code names and stuff. Although there is a character who's a comic book geek who kind of represents that audience and calls to a few of those tropes now and then, but even he goes in a very interesting direction. There are some just nice turns to the story that I appreciate. And it has some moral complexity that the characters have to deal with. And in the presentation of the premise, the biggest obstacles for these characters are their own personal struggles in life and their own flaws and the effect that those flaws have on other people. Now, I do think that the moral complexity is kind of abandoned in the final moments of the film, which I won't say anything more about it than that. So I was a little disappointed with how it ended, but on the whole, I really appreciate the nuance that they brought to this topic. And instead of just kind of like in an overly simplistic way saying, boy, these people that have superpowers, they should be allowed to be as free as they want to be. Well, we see in this movie what happens when people with superpowers are given that kind of freedom, at least what happens in many cases. The cast is made up of complete unknowns to me, which is a real delight, especially when the performances are also solid, and I found that to be the case for my tastes in this movie. As far as stunts and visuals, the visuals are definitely budget. There are definitely moments where I see corners cut, where they will show reactions to what is happening rather than really giving us a good look at what is actually happening, so that they don't have to spend the money to pull off the visual effects that would be required. But it doesn't hurt the story for me. me, there's still plenty of great superpower moments in the movie, even if they aren't displayed as impressive spectacles. So I think if you go in understanding, okay, this is not going to be a visually impressive movie, it's not going to be one of those Netflix movies that kind of surprises me with the visual effects that are in it. No, it's going to be more of what you would expect for something that is made for a TV audience primarily, or that is just an indie movie made on a smaller budget, whatever the case may be. As far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in this bit of entertainment that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? I think so. I don't know how much of it would be intended or not, but I think that right now, people are unfortunately finding their identity in all kinds of inappropriate things, in their skills, in their geek interests. We as geeks can do that. We even call ourselves geeks, and we can, without thinking of it, assign some value to ourselves that's associated with our geek credibility. People also assign identity to themselves based on whether they're attracted to men or women. So there's all kinds of things that we find ourselves making these fundamental parts of our identity that actually should not be. And I think that there's some of that going on in this story, where these quote-unquote freaks are finding their identity in the powers that they have. And that would be kind of the equivalent of a basketball player that's really good at basketball finding his identity in that. Or you and I in the work that we do, finding our identity and how skilled we are at our work. And I think that really does damage to us and does damage to our relationships. And I think we even see that happening in this movie. Like I said, I think in the final moments of the movie, it's not consistent in treating that identity issue with complexity. But I do appreciate on the whole how this movie recognizes that, yeah, when we find our identity in those kinds of things, these unique abilities that we might have, these unique interests or proclivities that we might have, those same things we are finding our identity in can hurt those around us. So it should not be taken as a license to just completely embrace and prioritize the things that we are putting our identity in, apart from our identity in Christ, which isn't anything that we manufacture ourselves as believers. It's something that was bought for us. And even those who aren't believers have an identity that has nothing to do with their interests, the things that they are drawn to, or their abilities. It has to do with the fact that God loves us all so much that he chose to become a man and die horribly so that we would have the opportunity to be with him in relationship forever. So I think finding our identity in other things is just going to lead to problems, and I think this movie, if not intentionally, provides some illustrations that we could use as a springboard to talk about that. I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, this is your kind of movie. Now, don't go out of your way to get it. Don't subscribe to Netflix to get this one. But if you have Netflix already, and if you happen to, in particular, be in the mood for one of these more psychologically grounded concepts of superpowers in a story, then this is worth checking out. It'll scratch that particular itch for you. It's not fantastic, though. If it was in English, you would have been multitasking while you were quote-unquote watching this. Because it's in subtitles, you had to sit and give it your full attention. Couldn't play a video game at the same time. But it's the kind of caliber experience that I think if it was in English, I would have found myself saying, okay, I'll just kind of let this play off to the side while I play a game. That said, giving it my full attention, I do not consider to have been a waste of my time. It was an interesting experience. It's rated TVMA, and there's no description for why that I could find. I would definitely say for language primarily. There is some violence, but not. It's like a PG-13 level of violence. I think in every case, all violence that would easily be seen on TV these days. So definitely language would be primarily what it's TVMA for. There's some F-bombs being dropped a few times here and there. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell. Anything you want to do to stay connected to this content and share it with others, I would really appreciate. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can get more information about all the exclusive benefits of being an insider over at patreon.com/spiritblade productions. And then, of course, I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. It is time for Extra Life again, and I'd love for you to be a part of it with me. Here's a recycled but slightly modified promo to tell you more. Once again this year, Christian Geek Central is participating in Extra Life. This is a charity that raises funds for the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals, which provides free medical care to children whose families could otherwise not afford it. And this is very often for critical, life-saving treatment. Joining our team only requires a willingness to ask your family and friends to consider donating toward your fundraising efforts. Participants also usually do something fun and game-related to draw attention to their fundraising efforts, like a special game night at your home or your church, or like me, you could do a crazy 24-hour video gaming marathon. Now, I'm theming it around video games, but really this event can be themed around any kind of gaming, which includes both video games and tabletop games of any kind. What you do to raise funds is entirely up to you, but I would love for you to consider joining the Christian Geek Central Extra Life team. As team leader, I'll be there to help answer your questions, provide some helpful tips if I can, and just in general be your fundraising cheerleader and try to draw attention myself to your fundraising efforts. You can get more information about the event as a whole at extra-life.org, and if you choose to sign up there, be sure to select Christian Geek Central as your team so I can get in touch with you and then just help in whatever way I can. Fundraising can begin at any time, but our main push is going to be through the month of October leading up to November 7th. That's the annual Extra Life Game Day, when I'll be streaming my 24-hour video gaming marathon live and trying to stay awake without throwing up. More details on my live stream as we get closer to it. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.